Welcome to Sarasota History Alive. I'm Lee Gaines, your host, and this week we're visiting Marina Jack's on the Sarasota Bayfront. People who haven't been to Sarasota for several years always remark on the various changes that have taken place during their absence. Nowhere is that more evident than in this area that once was known as the City Pier. The City Pier was one of the first projects undertaken after the colonists arrived from Scotland in late December of 1885. Alex Browning was a teenager when his family arrived with the other colonists and was a part of the crew that built the pier. With no machinery at their disposal, the crew set the pilings by hand, as well as the sills and joists. They topped them with a 2-inch lumber for decking, standing in water from knee to shoulder deep. A 50-square-foot extension was built at the end to support a warehouse. The pier was home to an assortment of buildings, including the oyster bar operated by the Broadway family. An oyster lover could order oysters stewed, fried, baked, boiled, smoked, or raw. The horse-drawn carriage seen in this photo was the mail hack. Dave Broadway drove the mail hack to Venice one day and back the next to deliver the mail that came by boat from what was then called Bradentown. Along the way, he would meet a variety of wildlife, including alligators, snakes, and wildcats. When the water of Shackett Creek was high, he'd leave the buggy on the north side and swim his horse across the creek. Once the mail was delivered, Broadway would make camp, collect some oysters, and cook them over a fire for his supper. In the early 1900s, if groups of people came to the Sarasota Bay region for the winter from the same family or location, they were often called colonies. One of those was the Hover Colony, which included members of the Hover family from Lima, Ohio. The Hover brothers wintered with their family and other related families in homes along the 100 acres they owned between what is now the Landings and the Field Club. Although their contemporaries knew them as the Hover Colony, residents would later recognize the Hover family name because of what they were about to construct. In February 1911, the brothers purchased the dock at the foot of Main Street from Harry Heigl, early Sarasota mayor and real estate developer, for $5,000. They widened and lengthened the pier and introduced some commercial enterprises, including a machine shop, oil tanks, and a fish supply shop. The following year, concrete replaced the wood planking. At the end of 1912, the Sarasota Times announced the brothers' plans for a 2-story building which would straddle the dock and extend 60 feet out from the seawall along Gulfstream Avenue. Finished in summer of 1913, the Hover Brothers Arcade was built of a light tan yellow brick with red tile roofing. 2 40-foot towers flanked the archway through the middle of the building for a driveway leading directly from the foot of Main Street to the dock. Inside the arcade, Dave Broadway's new restaurant and ice cream parlor occupied most of the northern section of the first floor, while the Lyric Theater featured Universal films in the southern section, and a number of office and commercial rooms filled the second floor. I'd like to thank you for joining me and ask you to be sure and come back next week for part 2 of the City Pier as we continue to explore our past and keep Sarasota history alive.